straight down the building. Boom, 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 boom. All the way down.
The building was designed to have a fully loaded 707 crash into it. That was the largest plane at the time. I believe that the building probably could sustain multiple impacts of jetliners because this structure is like the mosquito netting on your screen door, this intense grid, and the jet plane is just a pencil puncturing that screen netting. It really does nothing to the screen netting.
They did on that site is to provide references, and I like that because then I can check, I check for myself. So I go to this reference. It talks about sulfidation of steel. Gosh, that's curious. How did this sulfur get in this steel? It's high temperature corrosion of the steel with sulfur. Man, that's really strange. I read that. I went to the source. I read it, and pretty quick I'm learning about molten metal pools under both towers after they collapsed, and Building 7. Now, Building 7 wasn't even hit by a jet. It wasn't even hit by a jet.
The fire department commander telling me that they were not sure they were going to be able to contain the fire. And I said, we've had such terrible loss of life. Maybe the smartest thing to do is pull it. And they made that decision to pull, and then we watched the building collapse.
In Washington, we go to David Martin on cell phone. David?
I'm at Arlington National Cemetery, which is just across the highway from the Pentagon. A portion of the west side of the Pentagon has collapsed. I spoke to one of many injured who were in the building at the time. He had a light head wound. I asked him what happened. He said he didn't know.
I am Major General Albert Stubblebine. I am retired Army Major General. I was responsible for all of the Army's strategic intelligence forces around the world. So we always rely not on a single piece of data before we make a statement, but on multiple. And the more pieces of data that you have that correlate, the better you know exactly what is going on. So I have had a lot of experience in looking at photographs. I have looked at many, many different kinds of photographs from many, many different platforms on many, many different countries around the world.
Okay, so on September the 11th in 2001, what hit the Pentagon?
I don't know exactly what hit it, but I do know from the photographs that I have analyzed and looked at very, very carefully, it was not an airplane.
Mr. Speaker, the President of the United States.
Saddam Hussein, bin Laden.
Weapons of mass destruction.
Weapons of mass destruction.
Weapons of mass destruction.
Weapons of mass destruction.
Chemical, biological, and nuclear weapons.
Saddam Hussein and his sons must leave Iraq within 48 hours. Their refusal to do so will result in military conflict.
What have I done that I haven't been able to see my own father for so long? May God punish the...
Harper's Magazine writer Charles Glass has gotten his hands on some videos from private contractors in Iraq. These are Blackwater guys who operate in Iraq. Now, some of us have heard these stories before, but now you get to see video attached to it.
But there's no other contractor firm more insanely corrupt and criminal than Blackwater. Oh, sorry, did I say Blackwater? I meant Z. Academy, actually. Yes, in a poor effort to distance itself from its sordid war crimes and black market deals, Blackwater has changed its name 3 times already. See, 3 contractors are currently in the midst of a trial over manslaughter charges. However, as New York Times journalist James Risen just broke, weeks before the Nassour tragedy, the State Department had already begun investigating the company's operations in Iraq. But according to Risen, the inquiry was abandoned after Blackwater's top manager there issued a threat that he could kill the government's chief investigator and no one could or would do anything about it, as we were in Iraq, according to department reports.
If I had to quantify Iraq's threat in terms of weapons of mass destruction, the real threat is 0.
You sent them in there because of weapons of mass destruction. Later, the mission changed when there were none. I have your quotes on it. I have the president's quotes on it. And everybody admits it but you, that was the reason for the war. And then once we're in there, now it moved to a different mission.
I was a ranking member on the Intelligence Committee. Even before I became part of the leadership of Gang of 4. So I knew there were no nuclear weapons in Iraq.
The disturbing video was posted on the internet today by WikiLeaks, a whistleblower website. And it shows graphic gun camera images of a U.S. helicopter attack in Baghdad.
Come on, fire. Dead bastards. If he has a weapon though in his hand? No, I haven't seen one yet. You guys got that guy crawling right now on the curb? Yeah, I got him. I put 2 rounds near him, and you guys are shooting over there too, so we'll see. We have individuals going to the scene. Looks like possibly picking up bodies and weapons.
Hey, we need to stop that so we can get down there.
It's believed that 2 Iraqis working for the Reuters news service were among the dead. For 2 years, the Pentagon has refused to release the video or the findings of its internal investigation. But WikiLeaks says it obtained the video from whistleblowers and then published it to prove that the helicopters were not under fire or acting in self-defense.
We have no reason to doubt the reliability of these documents. We should say what they don't include. They don't include top-secret reports.
The documents are all part of what is called the Iraq database, which dwarfs the 76,000 Afghan war documents WikiLeaks released earlier this year. In both cases, the documents are believed to have been given to WikiLeaks by Army Private Bradley Manning, who was accused of copying them while working in an operations center in Iraq. So far, Katie, what the documents tell us is that the Iraq war was even uglier than we thought.
The number of U.S. military deaths has surpassed 2,000.
And the American death toll has reached at least 4,000.
6,758 troops died as part of the wars, about 65% of whom were in Iraq.
Pentagon files obtained by The Guardian contain details for the first time of more than 100,000 people killed in Iraq following the U.S. led invasion.
I think every American, I think everybody involved in this effort, I think everybody in the military, certainly in the intelligence community, and certainly the members of the Iraq Survey Group would have hoped by now there would have been a breakthrough. There has not been a breakthrough.
Today, the Washington Post has a blockbuster story, the results of several years of reporting and legal pursuit of government documents for the last 18 years. According to the government reports obtained by the Post, senior U.S. officials have been misleading the American public about the war in Afghanistan.
We heard in an interview after interview that these people gave, particularly aid workers in the field, military officers, diplomats, they all said this was more money than they could possibly spend, that they were ordered by Congress and officials back in Washington during the Obama administration to spend as quickly as they could, as much as they could, and they were really just graded on how much money they spent.
Those weapons of mass destruction got to be somewhere.
The winds right now 150 miles per hour around the center. This is a Category 4 hurricane. Now yesterday it was a Category 5 hurricane, but you know what? There's not much that much difference between a Cat 5 and a very strong Cat 4. So don't let your guard down. Right now the pressure is at 917. I believe we got a recon of 918 millibars, so it continues to weaken some, and it's moving north.
So I'm going to die. The water is steady rising in the attic, ma'am.
My mother and I, we're stranded in the attic, and she's a diabetic. I'm stuck in the attic, and me and my little sister and my mom, and it got water in the whole house.
You're going to be dry in a little while.
There you go.
Don't panic. Don't panic.
Don't panic. Right where you at.
Lost my way.
How are you doing, sir?
I'm not doing good.
What happened?
The house just split in half.
Your house split in half?
Right here on Hollingham, Beirut. Back, we got up in the roof, all the way to the roof, and water came and the house just opened up, divided.
Who was at your house with you?
My wife.
Where is she now?
Can't find her body. She gone.
5 current and former police officers in the shooting deaths of unarmed civilians.
Her 17-year-old son, James Brissett, was on the Danziger Bridge looking for food when he and 5 other unarmed people were confronted by police. The officers claim they're responding to a report that gunmen were shooting from a bridge. The police opened fire as soon as they arrived. Brissett was shot nearly a dozen times. He and another man were killed. The officers then covered it up, falsified reports, and planted a gun at the scene.
In the days following Hurricane Katrina, police officers in the city of New Orleans say they were told by the department's top brass to shoot looters. It's a story we broke this afternoon.
The smell was really, really horrific. You're talking like after the first day, the toilets was already backed up. And not having, drinking water and all that other stuff was just kind of like real bad. I watched a lot of people suffer. I seen people like unattended, elders like just sitting in place for like days at a time, not moving.
It's not pretty. Mountains of people's belongings left behind when they were rescued litter the landscape. I met Lieutenant Colonel Scott Elliott of the Texas Air National Guard, who told me the real heroes at the Superdome were the evacuees. As we enter the Superdome's dark, forbidding corridors, it's easy to see how families were separated, how there were reportedly rapes and sheer anarchy. The field itself looks like a battlefield.
With the breach of 3 levees protecting New Orleans, the landscape of the city has changed dramatically, tragically, and perhaps irreversibly. There's now over 25 feet of water where there was once city streets and thriving neighborhoods.
I hate the way they portray us in the media. If you see a black family, it says they're looting. See a white family, it says they're looking for food. Donation. So now I'm calling my business manager right now to see what is the biggest amount I can give, and another way. And they've given them permission to go down and shoot us.
And subtle, but in even many ways more profoundly devastating, is the lasting damage to the survivors' will to rebuild and remain in the area. The destruction of the spirit of the people of southern Louisiana and Mississippi may end up being the most tragic loss of all.
George Bush doesn't care about black people.
Superstar Kanye West is mourning the death of his mother today.
Coroner was unable to determine the exact cause of death, but did.
We're ashamed of the President of the United States.
We're going to boycott them for their music, and we're going to boycott you for playing it if you don't stop playing it.
Well, ma'am, that was the last one you're going to hear.
Hottest song in the country. All this stuff started, and it died.
Some protesters used a tractor and their feet to smash the group's CDs.
See magazine cover on the stands today pretty much sums up some of the names the Dixie Chicks are being called in America these days. Traitors, the Dixie Sluts, anti-American. All because of one split-second comment aimed at President Bush right before the war with Iraq.
Callow, foolish women who deserve to be slapped around.
Absolutely. Says Natalie Maines will be shot dead Sunday, July 6th in Dallas, Texas.
Each former president chooses his own path. I've chosen mine, and I'm my girl's matinee. Laura and I intend to begin traveling to meet with people, to listen to people, and to explore on our own the prospect of a campaign for president.
Carl Rove wanted me to buy this ranch, distance myself from my years at Yale and Harvard, make me more of a man of the people for the election. Smart. So we gonna do this thing, or what? I mean, is this happening?
Yeah.
No. I mean, I want you to be my VP.
The project for the New American Century, which is a think tank that was around in the 90s and up through 2005 or 6, and then it disappeared, and then came back online in 2009 when the coast was clear, and clearly nobody was getting prosecuted for anything. And there are about 17 members of this so-called think tank who were in top positions in the Bush-Cheney administration.
This is not just a Republican takeover. This is a very specific wing of the Republican Party. It's neoconservative, it's unilateralist, it doesn't believe in the rule of law, it doesn't believe you have to tell the public the truth.
And they happen to be an extremely arrogant, dangerous group of reactionary statists. They're not conservatives.
They have a political agenda with regards to foreign policy that they had been working on for years and years, and writing about this and saying this is the post-Cold War vision. This is our post-Cold War vision for American power.
Out of power during the Clinton presidency, in 2000, they would craft yet another proposed national security strategy. This one published by a right-wing think tank calling itself the Project for the New American Century. In their defining document, written in September of 2000, a full year before 9/11, it called on the United States to increase the military budget by up to $100 billion, to deny other nations the use of outer space, and to adopt a more aggressive and unilateral foreign policy that would allow the United States to act offensively and preemptively in the world, to prevent the emergence of any future or potential rivals to American power. They acknowledge that the process of transformation, even if it brings revolutionary change, is likely to be a long one, absent, in their own chilling words, some catastrophic and catalyzing event, like a new Pearl Harbor.
But then after they decide on why they want the war, they decide on why they should tell the public they want the war, advocating that is intense nationalism and militarism and going after Middle Eastern states with aggressive wars. And this is what PNAC urged on President Bill Clinton, who agreed with them and made regime change in Iraq one of his goals.
And I think this is very significant, that this PNAC document, although it was mostly Republicans, Clinton agreed with one of its main propositions, that there are certainly sections of the Democratic Party that are on board with this vision.
Right.
You want to make an omelet, you got to break some eggs.